She never expected that a simple act of kindness would change her life forever. A poor stranger appeared at her doorstep, tired, hungry, and weary. She helped him without thinking twice, but what she didn't know was that he held a fortune beyond imagination. And that one moment would set in motion a story of love, trust, and destiny. Before we continue, please like this video and subscribe to this channel. The rain fell steadily over the small Nigerian town of Umuahia, drumming softly on the tin roofs of the mud brick houses. The streets glistened with water, turning red clay roads into reflective streams. Puddles formed in every dip, mirroring the dim lantern lights that flickered from windows, casting long, wavering shadows on the walls. Adaeze, a young black African woman in her early 20s, moved quickly along the slippery streets, balancing a woven basket filled with fresh yams and ripe tomatoes. She clutched her shawl tighter around her shoulders, trying to shield herself from the cold droplets that soaked through her simple dress. The wind carried the scent of wet earth and smoke from distant fires, a familiar smell of home that brought a bittersweet comfort. As she hurried past an abandoned shop with its broken sign swinging in the wind, something caught her eye. A figure slumped under the cracked awning, barely moving. The man's clothes were soaked through, torn at the sleeves and hem. Mud clung to his worn sandals, and his face, partially hidden beneath tangled hair, showed exhaustion etched deep into every line. Instinctively, Adaeze approached him, her footsteps cautious on the slick mud. "Are you okay?" she asked softly, her voice barely rising above the rhythm of the rain. The man lifted his gaze. His eyes, dark and weary, met hers. There was a quiet alertness behind them, a strength that refused to be broken. I haven't eaten today," he whispered, his voice hoarse and fragile. Without hesitation, Adaeze tore a small piece of bread from her basket and handed it to him. "Eat this," she said gently. "You can rest under my roof until the rain stops." He hesitated for a long moment, as if the kindness of a stranger had startled him. Then slowly he nodded. Gratitude softened the lines of his tired face, and Adaeze felt a quiet warmth in her chest. She guided him through the muddy streets to her small home, opening the door to reveal a humble interior, a fire crackling in the hearth, casting golden light over worn wooden furniture and woven mats on the floor. She handed him a dry shirt and some spare clothes, which he accepted with careful reverence, changing quickly behind a screen. When he returned, dripping no more but still shivering, they sat together near the fire. "I'm Obinna," he said finally, his voice quiet, almost hesitant. There was no pride in his introduction, no mention of where he had come from or why he had ended up in this state. Just a name offered with trust. Adaeze smiled, shaking her head. "I don't need to know why," she replied. "Everyone deserves help when they need it." They ate in silence at first, the crackle of the fire and the patter of rain against the roof filling the room. Then, gradually, conversation began. Obinna spoke softly of the long road he had walked that day, of the hunger that gnawed at him, and of nights spent under tin roofs or open skies, hoping for safety. Adaeze listened intently, offering small reassurances, sharing her own humble experiences of life in the village, of chores and school and family obligations. The night deepened, but neither felt tired. There was a strange comfort in shared silence, in the warmth of the fire, and in the presence of another human being who simply cared. In that quiet, intimate evening, a bond began to form, not of wealth or status, but of kindness, empathy, and trust. Obinna had come into her life as a stranger, soaked and weary, but he left an impression that would linger far longer than the rain outside. And Adaeze, who had extended simple human compassion without question, would soon discover that some strangers carry more than just their physical burdens. They carry stories, dreams, and hearts waiting to connect with those who see them truly. The rain had stopped, leaving the village of Umuahia washed clean and sparkling under the late afternoon sun. Puddles reflected the bright sky, and the scent of wet earth mingled with the aroma of roasted yams and simmering stews. Obinna, the black African stranger who had appeared in Adaeze's life only days before, had begun to find a rhythm in the small town. He worked tirelessly during the day, taking on odd jobs at the market and helping neighbors with errands. Some mornings, he swept the streets before the sun had fully risen, his thin fingers stiff from the cool air. Other days, he carried baskets of produce, or fetched water from the distant well, earning just enough to eat. He never complained. Survival had become second nature. And yet, a quiet spark of hope remained in his eyes. But it was in the evenings that Obinna and Adaeze truly connected. They would sit outside her modest home, perched on worn wooden stools, watching the golden sun dip behind the red clay rooftops. The sky transformed into shades of orange and pink, stretching over the dusty town like a promise of something better. The air carried a gentle breeze, carrying laughter from children playing in the streets, dogs barking in the distance, and the faint rhythm of drums from a far-off celebration. Obinna spoke often of the life he had left behind, the long days in London, the cold that cut through him, the hunger that gnawed at his stomach even when he tried to ignore it. He told her of nights spent on hostel floors, beds shared with strangers, and doors that slammed before he could even enter. He spoke of rejection letters piling up, of people who never asked his name, who never paused to see him as a person. Adaeze listened in silence, her dark eyes wide and understanding. She never interrupted. She didn't pity him and she didn't judge. Her presence alone was comforting, like a warm blanket in the cold uncertainty of his life. "I always thought kindness was rare," Obinna admitted one evening. His voice soft, almost lost to the wind rustling through the palm trees. "But you've shown me it still exists." Adaeze smiled, brushing a stray lock of hair from her damp forehead. The gesture was small, gentle, and intimate. "Everyone deserves help when they need it. That's all," she said. Her words were simple, but to Obinna, they carried more weight than any riches he had ever imagined. As the days passed, their bond deepened. They shared stories of their childhoods, dreams, and small hopes for the future. Adaeze spoke of her love for learning, the books she wished she could read, and the journeys she dreamed of taking beyond the village. Obinna spoke of the cities he had seen, the lessons learned in hardship, and the quiet ambitions that still stirred in his heart. Laughter came slowly at first, timid, almost unsure. But it grew freer with each passing day, spilling over into the dusty streets, into the air itself. They laughed over small mistakes, over the struggles of the day, over a spilled basket of tomatoes, over an awkward conversation. The laughter was a bridge between them, a shared warmth that neither wealth nor poverty could define. In those quiet evenings, Obinna realized something he had never fully understood before, that life's greatest treasures were not money or power, but connection, empathy, and the rare moments of unguarded joy. Adaeze had offered him something he had long forgotten: trust without condition, care without expectation, and companionship that felt like home. And so, under the fading sun, with the world around them settling into evening calm, a delicate bond was forged. It was not built on gold or promises of grandeur, but on kindness, laughter, and the simple human truth that even in the hardest moments, someone could see you, truly see you and care. In those moments, Obinna understood that no matter what the future held, this connection, this quiet friendship, had already changed him forever. Weeks had passed since the rainy night when Adaeze first found Obinna shivering under the abandoned shop's awning. In that time, life had fallen into a quiet rhythm. Obinna took on odd jobs in the village, helping at the market, carrying goods, sweeping compounds, and running errands. He moved with a careful precision, his black African features now familiar to those around him, though his story remained largely unknown. At night, he and Adaeze would sit outside her modest home. The sky stretched endlessly above them, painted with stars that seemed almost close enough to touch. The red clay rooftops of the village glimmered faintly under the moonlight, and the cool night air carried the distant hum of cicadas and rustling palm trees. It was in these quiet moments that Obinna allowed himself to relax, to let down the walls he had built during years of struggle. One night, as the fire crackled softly in her small hearth and shadows danced across the mud walls, Obinna spoke, his voice low and careful. "I haven't told you the truth," he said, eyes fixed on the glowing embers. Adaeze looked at him, curiosity flickering across her face. "What do you mean?" she asked softly, her voice gentle, patient, inviting trust without pressing for answers. He paused, taking a slow breath, as if measuring every word. "I'm not just a stranger passing through," he continued. "I have wealth. A lot of it." For a moment Adaeze blinked, stunned. Her hand paused in mid-air, as if holding an invisible thread of disbelief. "Wealth," she whispered, her voice tinged with surprise and wonder. Obinna nodded, the faintest shadow of a smile on his lips, but his eyes remained serious. "Yes," he said. "I left home with nothing but dreams. Years of struggle, sacrifice, and quiet determination. They brought me here. But I came back this way." He gestured to his worn clothes, the sandals, the simple bag slung over his shoulder, "to see something more important than money." Adeeze's brow furrowed slightly. Why would you pretend to be poor?" "To see the truth," he said simply, his voice steady yet vulnerable. "To know if people would value me for who I am, not what I own. To know if kindness and love could exist without expectation, without greed." Silence stretched between them. The only sound was the crackling fire and the faint rustle of leaves in the wind. Adeeze's heart beat rapidly, a mixture of awe and admiration swelling inside her. She thought back to the first night she had found him, cold and soaked, and realized something profound. She had never asked for anything in return. She had offered help, warmth, and care purely because it was the right thing to do. In that moment, Obinna understood the rare truth he had been searching for. Her heart was pure, untouched by the temptation of wealth or status, untainted by greed. And he realized, with a quiet reverence, that she had already passed the test he had designed for the world around him. Adeeze's eyes glimmered in the firelight. She reached out, placing her hand gently on his. There was no fear, no judgment, only understanding, only quiet acceptance. Obinna felt something he hadn't in years, a sense of relief, of peace, of being truly seen. For the first time, he could imagine a life where trust, respect, and love were more important than gold or silver. "Thank you," he whispered almost to himself, though Adaeze heard every word. "For seeing me. For seeing the person behind the struggle, behind the clothes, behind the hardships." Adaeze smiled softly. "I don't need to see your money," she said, "to know your worth." And in that moment, under the vast African sky, with stars glimmering like silent witnesses, a bond deeper than wealth, stronger than ambition, and more enduring than hardship was quietly formed. It was a bond built on trust, honesty, and the rarest kind of human kindness, a bond that neither time, distance, nor circumstance could break. From that night forward, Obinna and Adaeze shared not just stories, but hopes, dreams, and a growing sense of something neither had expected. The first stirrings of love born from respect, integrity, and the courage to be authentic. As the rainy season gave way to clear skies, life in Umuahia resumed its gentle rhythm. But for Obinna and Adaeze, the days felt different. Fuller, warmer, as if the world itself had shifted just for them. Their bond, which had begun in quiet acts of kindness and trust, now grew stronger with every shared moment. They spent mornings walking through the village paths lined with tall mango and palm trees, the leaves whispering above them in the soft breeze. Obinna would point out the flowers Adaeze liked, sometimes picking the smallest, brightest ones for her, while she laughed at his careful, almost ceremonial gestures. The villagers who passed by often paused to watch, shaking their heads in quiet amusement, never guessing the depth of the connection forming before them. Evenings were spent beneath the vast African sky, watching the sunset paint the red clay rooftops and dusty streets in gold and amber. They would share meals with neighbors, carrying bowls of pounded yam and spicy stews, offering laughter and conversation that reminded them that happiness could exist without wealth. Every shared joke, every quiet glance, every moment of understanding built a foundation stronger than any house money could buy. Obinna never rushed. He was patient, careful to let trust and understanding deepen naturally. And one warm evening, under the soft glow of lanterns strung between her home and the neighboring huts, he spoke words that had been growing in his heart for weeks. Adaeze, he said, taking both of her hands in his. I've walked through storms and loneliness, faced rejection and hunger, and yet, I found something I never expected. I found someone who sees me for who I am, not for what I own. I don't need anyone to love me for my money. I need someone who sees me, who believes in me as I believe in you. Her eyes widened, sparkling in the soft lantern light. The warmth in her gaze, the unwavering trust, made his chest swell with quiet emotion. I do, Adaeze whispered, her voice steady but soft. I believe in you, and I choose to walk this life with you, no matter what comes. The simplicity of their promise carried more weight than any jewel or mansion could offer. Love, honesty, and trust were their inheritance. When news of Obinna's proposal spread through the village, whispers quickly turned to astonishment. A rich man marrying a poor girl, some murmured. But he must have fortune beyond imagining, others speculated. The juxtap of wealth and modesty shocked them, yet no one dared question the sincerity in the eyes of the two young Africans. Obinna and Adaeze, however, paid no mind. They had seen the heart behind appearances, the truth that money could never buy. Their love had been forged in the quiet moments of empathy and understanding, in shared struggles and acts of selfless kindness. It was a love rooted in the very essence of who they were, compassionate, steadfast, and real. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the village in twilight gold, they stood together beneath a mango tree, hands entwined, hearts aligned. In that simple, quiet moment, Obinna understood something he had long sought. Wealth could provide comfort, but only love, respect, and integrity could create a life worth living. And Adaeze understood it too. Together, they were a force neither circumstance nor expectation could sway. Their love was simple yet profound, humble yet unshakable. And in the simplicity of their shared moments, a story began, a story that would soon touch the hearts of everyone who witnessed it. The morning of the wedding arrived with a sky so bright it seemed to bless the entire village. Sunlight danced across the red clay streets of Umuahia, illuminating mud houses polished by the villagers' diligent hands. Banners fluttered in the gentle breeze, drums were tuned to perfection, and the air carried a mixture of excitement, curiosity, and, for some, skepticism. Obinna stood quietly at the edge of the gathering, dressed in a simple, well-fitted suit with a crisp white shirt beneath, no tie, just an air of understated elegance. He did not arrive in a convoy of luxury cars, nor did he display jewels or gifts. Instead, his presence alone carried authority and quiet confidence, the kind earned through years of struggle, sacrifice, and triumph. Adaeze approached, radiant in her modest yet beautiful dress. Her eyes met his, and for a brief moment, the world around them disappeared. All the whispers, the judgments, the long-held expectations, they faded like mist under the morning sun. They held hands, feeling the weight of the journey that had brought them here. The pain, the laughter, the shared understanding, the kindness that had defined their love. As the ceremony began, Obinna stepped forward to address the villagers. His voice was calm but carried the quiet power of a man who had seen the world, endured it, and chosen integrity over everything else. "My friends," he began, scanning the crowd with steady eyes, "I did not come here to boast, and I did not come to seek admiration. I came to share something more important than wealth or property, the value of character, honesty, and selfless love." With that, he gestured toward a few key places in the village. There, freshly built and ready to serve, with a school for children whose parents could not afford education, the clean water wells that replaced years of illness and hardship, and the small healthcare clinics staffed with trained nurses and doctors, prepared to care for anyone who needed help. Gasps rippled through the villagers. Those who had doubted, who had mocked him when he appeared poor, now understood the true depth of his achievements. Wealth, they realized, was not measured by gold or cars, but by the courage to give, to uplift, and to create opportunity for others. Namdi, his father, stood in stunned silence, the weight of regret evident in every line of his face. Years of pride, misunderstanding, and shallow ambition fell away in a moment of clarity. He saw the son he had failed to support, the man whose kindness had surpassed his own understanding of wealth. Obinna turned his gaze to Adaeze, his hand squeezing hers gently. "And yet," he continued, "while I could provide comfort and resources, what I needed to know was simpler, and far more important. Who would see me for who I am, not what I own?" Adaeze smiled, her eyes glistening, and nodded. "I always saw you, Obinna. That is all I ever needed." A hush fell over the crowd as the significance of the moment sank in. Love, integrity, compassion, these were the true measures of greatness. Obinna had tested hearts, and while some had failed, others, like Adaeze, had shone brightly. As they exchanged vows, promising to walk through life together, their hands remained tightly intertwined, symbolizing not just love, but partnership, trust, and shared purpose. Together, they had built something stronger than wealth, a life guided by principles, compassion, and courage. The sun dipped low, casting golden light over the village. In that glow, a lesson became clear. True wealth is not counted in what you possess, but in what you give. True success is measured by how you love without expectation, uplift without seeking praise, and remain steadfast in the face of doubt. And as Obinna and Adaeze walked hand in hand toward their future, the people of Umuahia understood, finally, that the richest heart in the village was not the one with coins, but the one that chose kindness, humility, and unwavering integrity. If you enjoyed this story, please like this video. Subscribe to this channel so you won't miss our next interesting story filled with love, lessons, and unforgettable moments. Until our next story,